Hi, I'm going to try to take you through this argument essay scoring rubric a little faster this time. The longer version is a little more thorough, but this will also get you where you need to be if your paper's already in good shape. Now, we'll just take it right in the same order as the pink rubric, so you ought to have both your paper and your pink rubric out and take a look at them concurrently. Okay, your introduction is going to start out with something interesting. Maybe it's a fact, a statistic, a figure. Of course, if you're going to need to document that. Typically, you don't need to document anything in your first paragraph because it's pretty general. But if you have a fact, figure, or statistic in there, you will still need to document it. You're going to provide any answers to any questions, background information the reader might need, definitions of the topics that you're talking about. And in general, your introduction should probably be at least 4 or 5 sentences. The last sentence, if you're doing a funnel introduction, maybe your thesis statement. This is going to be a position statement. You cannot just to sit on the middle of the fence here. You have to take a stand on your paper. So you are stating your position. You are also providing in your thesis statement the 2 reasons that you'll be discussing. Those will be the topics of your first body paragraph and your second body paragraph. Moving down to the body paragraphs, you'll see that both are the same here as far as your first and second. As far as the grading, you should have effective topic sentences in both of your body paragraphs. A topic sentence introduces the topic. It ties it back to your thesis statement. You should also notice that there are more points available for having a logical, substantial explanation of your evidence, and a few more points also for having actual evidence and not just your opinion, not just something that you heard or something that you read, but something that is actually from an expert, whether again it's a fact, a figure, a percentage, a statistic. And you also need to cite that source as well. You'll notice that the counter argument should be acknowledged and dealt with, and as we mentioned in class, this doesn't need to be something that you spend a lot of time on. Maybe a sentence, no more than 2 sentences, but you want to acknowledge the other side. So therefore, if you were to say something about all food should have cloning involved in it, for example, you might acknowledge the other side by saying something like, although opponents of this may say that, and then insert some relevant fact that they would say, and then go ahead and make a point to argue for your own point. And you'll do that with both of the paragraphs. Now you'll notice that I just stuck this little part in here in this study. If this is an example of how you cite something within the text, you can find more support for how to set up your document, how to make a works cited, how to cite information in your text by going to your 21T Mrs. Cusick's Blended Schools site, taking a look at one of her videos over there. Some of you have had this already. There's also some information on our Blended Schools site from Mrs. Kelly as far as how to do all of these things as well. But here's a little example. In this study, 78% of Americans supported cloning. And then you can just put the website at the end of that statement, and then the full information of where you got that on that site will be in your works cited. Never start a sentence out with a numeral, by the way, so you would have to either write out 78% or do what I did and just add a prepositional phrase at the beginning of the sentence. Okay, your concluding sentence relates the reason for this whole paragraph back to the thesis. It sums up the argument of that thesis. Okay, so both body paragraphs will be that way. You take a moment, hit the pause button, look at them both in relation to the rubric. Now your conclusion statement is typically going to be maybe 4 or 5 sentences, whereas your introduction is typically going to be maybe about 6 sentences, 5 or 6. In your conclusion, you want to restate your thesis. So put it in different words, try some synonyms, use a thesaurus, make sure that you discuss both of your points. So you might want to have one sentence each to summarize each of your body paragraphs. Now, here's the make us smarter. Why is this relevant? Why did we just spend all this time reading your paper? What are we supposed to do with this information? What are you trying to argue us to feel? What do you want us to do? This is the part where you do that, and you don't want to do it too simply, but you do want to do it clearly. Your works cited and your documentation, your argument writing, if you are looking at sources like about.com, ask.com, Wikipedia, you are probably not going to get the points available in this section. We've talked a bit in class about finding credible sources, about finding reliable and decent sources of information, reputable sources, and unbiased sources. That would also be important. Now again, you can look at Mrs. Cusick's Blended Schools page to figure out how to set up your works cited. I also have some sample papers posted on the side wall in our classroom. And finally, you're going to take a look at your conventions section. You'll notice this is worth 12 of 45 points, so it is definitely a section that you should pay some attention to. Let's take a look first at your heading. On the top left-hand side of your paper, you ought to have your name, and then double spaced down you'll have my name, and it's Leonard. And then the third line is going to be the title of your class. For this paper, for example, you could put LA7 argument essay, 712, put your section number on there, and that would be perfectly appropriate. The fourth line is going to be the date due, which in this case is going to be 26 February 2014. Your standard default margin is going to be 1 inch all around. You can always double check that. And your font is going to be Times New Roman or Arial, only one of those two, and only in 12-point font. So please do not change the size for any reason, including on the title. So on the top left, you have your 4-line MLA heading. You should have only a double space down, and then you center your title in the middle of the paper, and then another double space, and then the text of your paper. You should only have double spaced in between your paragraphs. There should be, everything looks very uniform. There should be no big open spaces. Okay, I think that covers it, except for talking about the fact that your title should have all of the important words capitalized, as well as the first and the last word. You should not have articles capitalized, so do not capitalize words like a, an, or the. Okay, here we go. We also want to check to see that you do not have any I thinks in there or I am going to's in there. We don't use that because your name's on the paper. It's quite obvious that these are your thoughts and your beliefs, so it is not necessary to say that. Also, that is a more informal point of view, whereas what we're going for here is a very formal point of view with very sophisticated words, sophisticated sentence structures, and an attempt made for a higher vocabulary level. So please don't use words that you don't know what they are, but if you can explore a little bit with the thesaurus rather, I think that would be good practice for you at this point. I don't want to see any sentences such as, cloning should not be allowed. Cloning should not be allowed because. This is really redundant, and it really takes a lot away from your paper if you repeat yourself in such a way. We have been learning about punctuation and different sentence structures. I'd like you to explore trying to even perhaps use a semicolon or to put together a compound sentence. You should have more variety in your sentence structure than just a plain simple sentence. You should also be checking your spelling, your capitalization, and your punctuation. You know enough about commas at this point to do a pretty good job with commas, and put commas after dependent clauses that come at the beginning of a sentence, for example. Okay, finally, you can see all the comments on here. I'm really hoping to be able to circle a great number of comments on your far left side here. And if you want the very best paper, follow the big chart down at the bottom. And if you can say to all of those claims there, yes, my paper does this, then you're going to be in great shape. Okay, so definitely take a good look at your pink rubric. Let's try to have a good paper, and I hope I was able to speed this up a little bit for you. Good luck.